I'm George De La Cruz. I'm the sheriff in Cochran County.
And I'm Kinsley Rice, and I'm interviewing him. Um, how did you acquire this leadership role? Like, what did you have to do to become sheriff?
Uh, First, because of my 22 years in law enforcement, uh, about 7 years ago, actually about 13 years ago, I decided uh, that I wanted to be the sheriff. And I set a goal to learn as much as I could in law enforcement, and then to prepare myself as a leader, I moved to a bigger department, in a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took that opportunity and took a bunch of uh, continued education classes, some which are required by the state, uh, and just furthered my knowledge and education in leadership, uh, in that new leadership role.
Mm-hmm. What are your responsibilities over everyone else?
My responsibilities are probably the most important would be the budget. And the reason I think it's the most important because, you know, uh, with the budget you have training for all the members of the sheriff's office, training, equipment, preventative costs such as uh, like educating children in school, drug prevention, uh, domestic violence prevention, and different aspects of preventative education, which everything involves money. So the budget, making plans, identifying different problem areas in the communities that we serve uh, within the department, whether it be in the jail or dispatch or patrol, in making plans and executing plans, and ensuring that those plans are being executed accordingly.
Okay. How do you approach change?
I think change is a change is a constant. Everything, the dynamics, the way criminals operate, uh, the types of crimes, you know, the type of criminal is constantly evolving, and the majority of the time it's dynamic. So you have to always be willing and able to change. Whether you change your tactics because society changes tactics, criminals change tactics. So in order to keep pace, you have to always be able to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it just depends on the situation of how you approach change. And but if I were to say how I approach change is by being proactive, trying to stay a step ahead of the change that's coming, and trends. If you keep an eye on trends, uh, then you will be proactive and be able to approach that change.
What are some ways that you take risks while being a leader?
Um, Again, if we go back to change, some of the risk you have to take is like something that has never been tried before, and you have to kind of, one, think outside the box, and two, uh, try something that has never been tried or has never been done. When I first became the sheriff, there was a lot of things that needed to be changed, and uh, a lot of that change wasn't met with open arms, but sometimes you got to sell the change, and you got to take that risk. Because if you don't take a risk, well, you're never going to know whether or not it would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
So every day, whether it's answering a call for service or making a new plan and executing that plan in whatever area, it's always a risk, and you have to be willing to take that risk. So, yeah, every day is, an opportunity presents itself that you end up taking a risk of some kind.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that you have?
Uh, the biggest challenge is people, you know, and when I say people, it's like the people I work with, the deputies, the jailers, the dispatchers, other forces in the courthouse, the district clerk, the county attorney, district attorney, the people we work around. And the reason I think it's the biggest challenge is because you're talking about, in our office, in the sheriff's office, there's 14 employees. That's 14 different personalities, 14 different opinions, 14 different trains of thought. So it's not necessarily a negative challenge, but it's challenging. To me, it's challenging because I have a certain uh, mindset or way that I think we should accomplish something this way. But you also have to be, what we talked about, you have to be open-minded to take input from those other 13 personalities, 13 different uh, walks of life, So that would be, to me, that's probably the most challenging and for lack of a better word, demanding, aspect of being in a leadership role.
What would you say is like the ultimate goal of being in the sheriff's office?
Uh, well, I think there's two parts to that, long term or short term. And again, what we talked about earlier is the short term goal would be making the communities safer and better than we found them at the beginning of the shift or the day. And long term, for me, my long term goal is, I know it might sound kind of silly, but to me, long term, what is the legacy that I want? What do I want to be remembered as? And my goal, my personal goal every day is to be the people's sheriff, to serve the people that elected me. And I hope I never lose track of that, that I took an oath. My campaign was built around being a public servant. And my ultimate goal every day and long term, for me, my ultimate goal is to be that people's sheriff.
I think that's all. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.